The Raiders are trying to sort out their quarterback situation this offseason. Since they didn't snag one of the top two picks in the NFL draft, their hopes for Shedder Sanders or Cam Ward might be out the window. Sure, they could go for a free agent like Sam Darnold, but insider sources claim that there are still issues for the Raiders with this option as well. And is it possible that the answer to the Las Vegas Raiders quarterback problems have been under their noses all along? Yes, there are bold predictions in the market that the Raiders don't need to look for anywhere else. So let's break it down, what's going on, and who can be their franchise quarterback. What's up, buddies? Welcome back. If you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We cover all AFC West news here on this channel. Before moving to the actual topic, let's discuss Sam Darnold. He is the one who's currently the hottest name in free agency. And if the Raiders are thinking about securing a long-term quarterback for 3 to 5 years and making him the face of the franchise, Sam Darnold stands out as the biggest name in this context. Now, I know this might come as a surprise to many. A lot of people don't see Sam Darnold as the ideal quarterback for their team, and I can understand that perspective. However, it's important to note that teams weren't exactly sold on Baker Mayfield at first either. Remember his time with the Rams? He made an impression there, even after being overlooked. Then he landed with the Buccaneers on a 1-year contract because even they weren't fully convinced about him. But he proved himself and is now considered their franchise quarterback. We've seen similar stories in the NFL. Geno Smith is another example of a quarterback who overcame skepticism to find success. Some people believe Sam Darnold could follow the same path. Teams that need a quarterback right now seem very interested in him. So, believe it or not, Sam Darnold is currently one of the most talked about names among teams looking for a quarterback. But today we received some news that could impact the quarterback market, particularly for the Las Vegas Raiders. It seems the Minnesota Vikings are planning to bring back Sam Darnold. While this hasn't been officially announced, there are signs pointing in that direction. Let me break this down further. If you didn't know, the period for franchise tagging players officially started today. Between now and March 4th, teams can apply either the franchise tag or the transition tag to players set to become free agents. For example, the Cincinnati Bengals have already made it clear that they plan to franchise tag T. Higgins, ensuring he doesn't hit free agency. Similarly, the Vikings have the option to use the franchise tag to retain players like Sam Darnold or Byron Murphy. Here's how the franchise tag works. The team guarantees the player a salary that averages the top 10 salaries at their position. This makes the tagged player one of the highest paid in their position for that year. It's a common way for teams to keep key players from leaving, especially if they're not ready to commit to a long-term contract. The Chiefs, for instance, have Troy Smith, and the Raiders have Trayvon Mulrig as potential franchise tag candidates. These decisions will heavily shape the free agency landscape. This is a crucial detail because it indicates that the Vikings are unwilling to let either player walk for free. Darnold has emerged as a potential cornerstone at quarterback. The report strongly suggests that the Vikings plan to franchise tag Darnold. For the Las Vegas Raiders, this complicates any plans to pursue him. If the Vikings tag him, the Raiders would need to trade for him, likely giving up draft picks, which isn't ideal. That said, a franchise tag doesn't guarantee a long-term stay. The Vikings could still explore trading Darnold, and in that case, they would need to decide which quarterback to build around. If they opted to keep Darnold, trading someone like J.J. McCarthy, who holds significant value, might be a smarter move. The key takeaway is that Darnold won't simply hit the open market, and the Vikings seem determined to make the most of their options. For the Raiders, this means Darnold might not be the realistic option some hoped for. While general managers don't always think like fans, they do understand the value of having at least a top 15 quarterback. A team without one often struggles to make the playoffs consistently, and failure over multiple seasons usually costs GMs their jobs. This is why quarterbacks like Darnold, even with mixed opinions, remain in demand. If I were making the decisions for the Raiders, I'd focus on a short-term solution. Targeting a proven veteran like Matthew Stafford or Aaron Rodgers makes more sense than committing to someone like Darnold for 4 or 5 years. A short-term approach allows the Raiders to compete now while exploring long-term options later. And here is what the actual news comes in. Kyle Sapa of Pro Football Network feels that Aiden O'Connell could end up being the signal caller the team is looking for. This is quite interesting, and when you look at the details, this actually makes more sense. In a bold predictions piece for each NFL team heading into 2025, Sapa suggested that O'Connell might actually be the answer for the silver and black. He said, "What if O'Connell is the answer? What if Ashton Genie is landed with the 6th overall pick, and this offense gains stability at a position that was a glaring weakness a season ago?" O'Connell appeared in 9 games and started 7 of them in 2024, finishing with 1,612 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. He completed 63.4% of his throws and had a passer rating of 86.7. Those stats aren't exactly impressive, and losing the opening day job to Gardner Minshew doesn't help his case. Still, maybe O'Connell is better than most people give him credit for. The Raiders picked O'Connell in the 4th round of the 2023 NFL Draft. After an impressive preseason, the Purdue product created some excitement heading into his rookie year, and he did show flashes of potential. Interestingly, we have another report by Nick Shook of NFL.com. in which he ranked the most notable quarterbacks in the NFL after the season ended, and he placed O'Connell as the 29th best quarterback in the league. Here's what he said. By the end of the season, it was very clear O'Connell was the best quarterback on the Raiders roster. Injuries, and a preseason competition for the job that didn't produce noticeable separation, but led coach Antonio Pierce to choose Gardner Minshew II, got in the way of O'Connell commanding the job. But by the time he'd officially taken over as QB1 late in the season, O'Connell was ready to seize the opportunity. He's not threatening most starters, but he's done enough to carve out what is likely to be a long run as a plus backup. He's already exceeded expectations despite the Raiders' fluid dysfunction over the last 2 years. Now, with Las Vegas expected to find yet another replacement candidate for him, I expect him to find a new home before long. So, coming back to the point, if the Raiders decide to go for a short-term solution at the QB position with an experienced player, instead of drafting a new quarterback, they could focus on training O'Connell. In my opinion, O'Connell needs at least another year to prove himself. So far, he hasn't played a full regular season. Plus, the team doesn't just have a quarterback issue. A quarterback's performance is directly tied to the offensive side of the game, and QB protection is crucial. Last season, O'Connell started 9 games, got sacked 10 times, and threw 4 interceptions. This alone shows how essential quarterback protection really is. For now, let's set aside the Sam Darnold option. Beyond that, what other choices do the Raiders have? We're also assuming that by the 6th pick, a good quarterback won't be available for them. So apart from that, the Raiders still have a few options to consider. One big name is Aaron Rodgers. Yes, he is a good option for a short term, but his growing age is a bit concerned. The Raiders can go with him for a 1-year deal while focusing on developing their actual quarterback. Another name that is emerging as a top contender is Jacoby Brissett. New part owner Tom Brady played ahead of Brissett during the Patriots' 2016-17 season, so there's already some familiarity between them. On top of that, Brissett has earned respect from teams and coaches for his professionalism and reliability as a spot starter who can step aside when the franchise quarterback is ready. Unlike some veterans who feel pressured by younger players, Brissett knows his role and embraces it. He's also great at protecting the ball, with a 1.4% interception rate, the lowest in NFL history. But to be fair, Brissett's numbers might give teams some pause. He's completed just 61.1% of his passes and holds a 1934 record as a starter. Some other names are also in Raiders' radar. For example, Justin Fields and Kirk Cousins, assuming the Falcons release him. There's also Russell Wilson, who won Super Bowl 48 with Carroll and the Seahawks, but the two had a messy breakup in Seattle. Then Matthew Stafford from Rams, Kyler Murray from Cardinals, and Geno Smith from Seahawks, who Carroll elevated to the starting role after trading Wilson to Denver, are among the quarterbacks that could be available via trade this offseason. The Raiders now have an exceptional coaching staff that could capitalize on a win-now strategy. With Pete Carroll, a Super Bowl-winning defensive coach, Chip Kelly, an experienced offensive mind, and Patrick Graham, who has proven himself in recent years, this staff is built to maximize the team's potential. Given this setup, the Raiders are better positioned to pursue immediate success rather than investing heavily in an uncertain long-term option. If I'm looking at the Raiders' situation right now, they are at a point where going all in makes sense. With some promising young players who are still on team-friendly contracts, the Raiders have a short-term window, maybe 2 to 3 years, to build a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Once those young players start commanding top-tier salaries like Jackson Powers-Johnson potentially becoming the highest-paid center and Brock Bowers becoming the highest-paid tight end, the flexibility within the salary cap will shrink. We've seen this play out across the league. When players hit their peak earning years, the team overall tends to lose depth. That said, it's tough to imagine Las Vegas truly sees O'Connell as their long-term answer at quarterback. Still, there's a chance the Raiders might not land another quarterback this offseason and decide to give O'Connell a shot next September to see what he can do. So guys, what do you think? What are the chances the Raiders will go with this strategy? And do you believe this strategy will work? Let me know in the comment section.